Good morning and welcome to today's webinar on BSE and ISO 41001 and the Facility Management Standards Landscape. My name's Anna Fricker and I'm a Lead Standards Development Manager at BSI. I am also the Committee Manager for BSI's Technical and Strategy Committees for Facilities Management, known as FMW1 and FMB1. So before we start today's webinar, there are a few housekeeping points to cover. This is a listen-only webinar. It is being recorded, so it will be available for you to view later and will also be available for anybody else who isn't able to join us today. We do welcome your questions throughout the webinar via the Q&A function. These will be answered in the Q&A session at the end. Please do click on the Q&A button in the side panel and post your question and they will come through to us. We have also received some pre-submitted questions, so thank you to everyone who took the time to do this before the webinar. If you do experience any technical difficulties, please also submit your issue via the Q&A function and we will do our best to sort these as quickly as possible. You will see a feedback survey when you exit the webinar. Please do fill this in so that you receive the link to the recording when it is available and so that we can improve the webinar experience for everyone. Finally, this is a CPD recognised webinar, so please do request your feedback via the feedback survey following the close of the webinar. There are 4 handouts available in the chat. The first contains the process for using captions in Chrome. 2 others have further information and links, and the final one has details of upcoming BSI webinars in the built environment sector. So for our agenda today, we will hear from 2 speakers about the work taking place to develop standards on facilities management. Our first speaker, Stan Mitchell, is the CEO of Key Facilities Management and also the convener of ISO TC 267 Working Group 9, the international working group which is responsible for the revision of the management system standard for facilities management, ISO 41001. Our second speaker, Nick Blake, is an Associate Director at Gardner and Theobald LLP and is also the Chair of our Facilities Management Technical Committee, FMW1. Nick will be providing an overview of some of the other facilities management standards which have been or are being developed at an international, European or a national level. And we will finish today's webinar with a Q&A session. So again, please do put your questions in via the Q&A function. So without further ado, I will hand over to Stan to talk about ISO 41001. Over to you, Stan.
Okay, thank you, Anna, and welcome everyone to hear a little bit about what's happening in the update and revision of IS 41001 Management System Standard. Just to give you some preliminaries about the organisation that's dealing with this review, it's a systematic review of the standard that within ISO happens for any standards with every 5 years. And you basically have 3 choices with a standard when it's up for systematic review. You either can leave it as it is if you feel that it can't be enhanced and remains relevant. You can delete it if you think the standard is no longer applicable. That doesn't tend to happen with management system standards, I have to say. Or you can review it and revise it. And we have decided within ISO TC 267 that given that it was originally published in 2018, an awful lot has happened between then and now that is worthy of a review of the whole document and to upgrade it wherever we deem that to be appropriate. So, okay. So I talked to lots of colleagues who don't take standards as seriously as I believe they should. And the reality is standards really, really do matter. They're not a threat to anybody. They are guidance documents from people of your peer group who are involved in facilities management. And what they do is they begin to standardize the language we use, and it's an international standard. So that actually is very, very important that we talk the same language. I'm not talking about French or Arabic and English. I'm talking about the FM language that we all use. It provides consistent communication. Probably the greatest value is it provides knowledge exchange. Certainly within facilities management context, none of us have got all the answers. So that to me is very, very important. And for those of us that are involved in standards creation and development, I think every one of us would acknowledge we learn something through that knowledge exchange process, if you like. Performance improvement. We're always being challenged in FM to do it a bit better, be more efficient, be more effective. And also it matters because it highlights risk. Risk in every aspect of that topic, not just risk in the job, but risk in lack of communication, risk in awareness, risk in the guidance to the people within the FM teams and the contractors involved. So they do matter, and most certainly they are an opportunity as opposed to a threat. So a little bit briefly about that committee. And if you look across the horizontal line at the top, we have organized our committee within these different sections, if you like, where we try to focus the work that we're doing. So you can see on the second from the right at the top, leadership and innovation is where ISO 41001 sits. And I'm the convener of that stream. And the only piece of work we are focused on right now is the review of 41001. But you can also see down the left-hand column there that we try to identify what the standards are focusing upon. And then you can see the leadership, the planning and support, and the operational standards that we're working on. And the color coding tells you what's already been published, what's in progress, and what is proposed. So that just gives you a bit of an insight. So anyway, I'm here to talk specifically about 41001. So I really just want to talk briefly about yesterday and where we've come from with this particular standard, where we are today, and what the plan is for tomorrow. So when it was published in 2018, it was a landmark standard. It was the first international standard to be published for facilities management or facility management, depending on the term you use in the different markets. So it was the first one that was ever published. So that was something we were very proud of at the time. We put the flag in the ground, as it were. And in creating that document, there was 51 countries involved in TC 267 at the time. So that allowed different markets, if you like, to input different perspectives, because facilities management is still the new kid on the block in the built environment sector. And in various markets, various countries, there's different levels of maturity, if you like, of facilities management itself and how it is structured and how it is being delivered, etc. So that was quite a significant event, if you like, for creating that document, which gave some leadership based on the knowledge of the different people and the different perspectives that were involved in it. So what about today? As I mentioned already, we're in the middle of a excuse me, in the middle of a 5-year review. Working Group 9 is the working group that I am leading. Excuse me. Get rid of the frog in my throat. We now have 53 countries involved in the technical committee. And in Working Group 9 itself, we have over 32 individual committee members. So we have a very good cross-reference of input in the process of going through this complete review of the standard. Since we commenced the work, we are having monthly virtual meetings, and we've managed one face-to-face meeting to date, and that was just last month. And that has moved things on considerably. It's much, much easier if you can actually get into a room and have the discussions and the debates in terms of the comments that we're receiving. And that was very worthwhile. But the challenge in the review that we're undertaking right now is recognizing that from 2018 to today in 2024, an awful lot has changed, but the document that we're trying to review and develop has to potentially sit there till 2030. So that gives us the challenge about not only updating it to what we understand today is relevant in the marketplace, but what can we foresee that's going to emerge in due course right up until 2030. So the challenge that we've got is to make sure that as a management system standard document is fit for purpose. We need to support the growing number of standards that I showed you at the beginning that are in the 41,000 family of standards. And that family of standards is being developed to support 41,001. So as you come across requirements in 41,001, you might find some of the support and guidance that already exists in the broader family of standards. Tomorrow's FM, big question mark, but let's do a bit of crystal ball gazing and try and foresee and forecast some of the things that are coming along that we need to consider. And what I've called the big ticket considerations, we are definitely updating in terms of the relevance of technology in FM. We're definitely looking at how we can influence the UN SDGs. Then you've got ESG, AI, and of course the workplace itself. So the work that we're undertaking right now is very much trying to embrace each of these categories, if you like, and embedding them into the standard document itself. Another opportunity that we've got is that for those of you that have read the standard, within the standard there is guidance for using the standard, and there is also what we call annexes. And annexes are very useful for us, and we're planning to make much more use of them, particularly in some of these big ticket considerations. And the reason for that is within an annex, we have more flexibility in terms of how we can describe things, what information we can share that sits outside of the actual standard document itself. The core standard document itself, we are much more restricted and restrained by the rules within ISO about the language we use, the information that we can share, etc. So there's a lot of work going on to upgrade 41,001 and embrace some of these big ticket considerations while we do so. So some of you, I'm sure, will be very familiar with management system standards. Some of you maybe not. So some of the things that are relevant in trying to adopt and comply around the standard is the value that they bring. So it's focused on supporting how the organization manages its interrelated parts within the organization itself in order to try and achieve whatever the organization's goals are. A management system standard could be considered as a horizontal standard, whereas specific technical standards are considered as vertical standards, i.e. the technical standards take a particular topic and that is what they talk about. A management system standard is what it says. It's about the management of facilities management across all kinds of technical requirements and scope, all kinds of organisations. So it's not limited to manufacturing or healthcare or office environments. So the horizontal management system standard is the umbrella standard, if you like, for everything else that exists within the 41,000 family of standards. The benefits of doing it in the first place is it will bring more effective management, more efficient use of resources. It will improve risk management. And we had feedback from several organisations when COVID hit us that the fact that they had already gone down the road of compliance with 41,000 helped them considerably to react to the surprise that COVID was to most of us. And as you will know, in FM, we played a significant part in reacting to that particular pandemic. And it will also deliver increased capability to deliver consistent quality of the services that we provide to our interested parties and all other stakeholders. So we're going to ask a quick poll from you, 2 very brief questions, and that will come up just now. Please do click on one of those 2 answers, just to give us some feedback. And perhaps the next one. If we can move on. Okay, 50-50. Well, that's quite good from the point of view of I'm talking to some of you who have considered it and perhaps not processed it, but I'm talking to some of you that haven't. So thank you for that. That's useful information for ourselves. If we can move on. So now, having given us that quick feedback, how do you consider that it would add value to your organisation, your FM organisation, as well as the demand organisation or organisations that you might serve if you're an outsourced FM organisation? So again, please give us some feedback as to your view on that, because that will help me maybe react to the rest of my slides, as well as react during the Q&A that's to come. So if we can see the response to that question. Okay, so you would consider it. Fantastic. So let me move on now to another couple of slides to share with you. My screen, okay, let's come up. Let me move that out of the way. It's come up a bit large, so I don't know if we can compress. The presentation I'm looking at is okay. Okay, I can't quite see the full slide on my screen, but I know what's on it, obviously, so I'll talk to it. This information is a survey that was carried out by BSI some years ago, and it was asking organisations who had implemented management system standards, what impact did they feel it had in terms of these different headings. And I'm afraid I can't see the full slide, so I'm not sure what you can all see. But this was the feedback that was delivered back to BSI, that people felt that their organisation outperformed the competition. 55% of them achieved cost savings. 75% boosted their performance. And I still can't see the rest of the slides, so I can't talk to that, but hopefully you can see the information that is there. And I'm going to see if we can move on to the next slide then. And again, I can't see the full slide, I'm afraid.
Hi, Stan. I'll take control
Yeah.
so you can talk through the slides.
Okay. Just give us a moment till we, I'm hoping all of you can see it. I'm the only one that's suffering from the not seeing the full slide. Anyway, we also asked those, or BSI also asked those organisations what did they think the added value was as a result of going through the standard. So efficiency gains through the harmonisation, the ability to demonstrate that activities were fully compliant to their demand organisations, agile approach in terms of user and customer needs, huge impact on how they operated in terms of their processes and procedures and performance measurement, and allowed them to take a more strategic approach to what they were doing in terms of the focus on the core business. And again, I'm afraid I can't see anything else, so if the full slide is up in front of you, that's just some feedback that came from the people who had implemented MSSs in their own organisations. So if we can move on. Okay. MSS is just to make you all aware, particularly for those of you that haven't gone down the route of looking at this. ISO develops standards, they're not involved in any certification of standards. That's performed by the IAF certification bodies. And the people who certify against a management system standard are commercial organizations. So they simply are coming and doing an audit review, if you like, with your organization and what you've put in place to give you the feedback and a gap analysis in order, if you react to those gaps, you should be compliant and you should be able to get certified under 41001. So if we can just pull up the next section. And I know this, again, I can't see it all, but there are 3 ways of undertaking that audit. Do it yourself. Get somebody in your organization who is not directly involved, perhaps, to look at the standard and then look at what you've done and what you've put in place. The second option is to use external people, consultants who are familiar with 41001, who can come and do the same exercise basically, but with perhaps a greater knowledge of the standard and what the objectives are with the standard. Or you can go to the certification organizations who, as I'd said, they're commercial bodies and they will come and they will do it. And they obviously are intimately knowledgeable about management system standards and what you need to do to comply with them. Next slide. When anybody audits your management systems for compliance, they need to do it under another standard document, which is a conformity standard, 17021-11. And the difference in auditing 41001 as opposed to, for example, 9001 is that 41001 you need to have a knowledge of facilities management. ISO 9001 is about a quality standard, and that's about you do what you say you do. Whereas with 41001 it goes deeper than that. It goes further than 9001 in terms of a facilities management organization and how it is managing itself. So you need to understand the vocabulary. You need to understand the context of your organization. Facilities management organisations are focused on delivering the services and the technical requirements, but you need to understand the context of the organisation you're serving. You need to interpret those organisational needs to make sure that they're compliant within what you're doing as an FM organisation. Next bullet, please. It needs leadership. And again, if you just bring up all the bullets, please, because I can't see any more. That is what the conformity standard 17021-11 requires of you when you want to get that audit carried out. It has to be done under the criteria of the conformity standard. And if an audit team comes or a certification body comes, or indeed your in-house audit team, they need to have somebody that understands FM. Otherwise, they can't really audit you against the standard. Next slide. Okay, that's me done. I'm going to hand over to Nick now, who is going to talk to you about what's going on within BSI itself. And BSI is the body in the UK that supports everything I've just been talking about. So over to you, Nick.
Stan, thank you very much. Good day, everybody. Stan has been running through some of the standards, been speaking about people who have been working on them. I'm going to talk about how they appear and some of the standards that we have underway that the UK is contributing to. A lot of people may be of the opinion that there is just some industry identified need. There is desires and ideas that go into some sort of top secret magic box and out comes fully developed standards. I'm going to kind of open up that box for us today, take away that top secret bit and tell you how they're made. My name is Nick Blake. As we've said, I chair one of those two BSI groups up in the top right here, top left here, FMW1. We are the technical group. Essentially, that means we kind of do the do. We do the writing, the drafting of the standards. There is another group, FMB1, that help us with the strategy, direction, guidance. It's called the strategic group. Within FMW1 and FMB1, we are made up of some individual experts. Those come from all sorts of backgrounds, consultants. There are service providers, there are owner operators, there are a wide range of individual experts, but there are also nominating organisations. As you can see down on the right-hand side of the screen, we've got again, some industry bodies, some specific sector bodies. We've got some government bodies, a good range of people who appear on that list there. And we currently have positions filled for most of those. We are working on a few of them. We're always looking to see if there's people missing from the list. So this is an interactive session. Throughout my chat, I'm more than happy for you to make comments in the chat that we can address as we get to the end, the Q&A session. For example, do you think there are some nominating organisations, some people who are strong within the FM area who are not represented on that list? But those are the sorts of interactions that I'd be looking for. So FMW1, FMB1, we are the BSI, the British standards, approved standards bodies that contribute to the standards, the British standards, as you would expect, but also European and international standards. Now, European standards fall under, I'm putting a couple of the bodies up there. There is another, the Committee Européen de Nationalisation, the European Committee for Standardization, and the electrical version, made up of 34 European bodies. We have a little map showing where they are made up. Actually, I think that little map shows both all the bodies that are contributing to the SEN standards, but also if you have a look at the blue area, there is one technical committee, TC 348, which is very much focused in our area, facility or facilities management. And that has a huge portion of those member states contributing to it. As you can see, there's a number of tie-ins with other associations. And we have some liaisons. What this means is we work with other technical committees, both within the European spectrum and the international spectrum. Similarly to the TC 348, there is an international group of experts, 267, who also focus on facility management. Now, Sam was talking about ISO 41001. 41001 will be undertaken by the group here, the international group. And the international group is made up of a large portion of these. ISO used to bug me for a very, very long time, the fact that the International Organization for Standardization actually had its initials the wrong way round. However, if you go onto their website, they do talk about the fact that being international, it would be all sorts of different, well, actual letters, never mind just orientations of the words for the various different languages. So ISOS is the Greek word meaning equal, and no matter where you are in the world, no matter what language, it's always equal. Nice story, it made me feel better about it. 171 national bodies who are members of ISO. You can see a colour chart here. The darker colours are full member bodies, correspondent members and subscriber members. We in the UK come second only to China in terms of contribution to international standards. And China have literally 1.25 billion, more than 1.25 billion more people than us. They are actively contributing to around 770, and we are just a few steps behind. Again, this is information when I checked last week, I believe, 764. So massive contributors the UK are. So very, very key, and that follows through to the international standards. Now, Stan has spent some time talking about the management standard. I'm going to share 3 of the other international standards that we are currently looking at. So just after 41001, we have an approved work item, 41002, which again, all of the 41000 series are related to facility management. This is having a look at the development of facility management organization. So what this does, this is something that is currently being undertaken at the moment. And again, if you're looking for interactions, we're always interested in seeing if there are people out there who are looking to contribute to this. We're talking about the FMO. Now, this is the Facilities Management Organization, whether it is an internal organization, as in in-house facilities management provision, or if it is external, service providers, traditional contractors, it covers the whole gamut. So having a look at the development of that facilities management organization, covering the various different important parts of that development, whether it is having a look at simple things like organizational structure, or more complex things like how you actually engage with relevant stakeholders. The sorts of people who would be interested in this sort of standard, obviously it's organizations with the responsibilities for managing facilities or delivering those, as well as perhaps people who are looking to contract that service or manage that service, maybe not directly, but indirectly as building owners and operators looking to their internal departments. This helps them structure a standardized guide to a standardized offering. Now, what standards do, they don't tell you how to undertake everything. They give you a guide of best practice considerations. So if 2, 3, 5, 100 people read this same standard, they may be able to pick up a percentage. So it may only resonate at a small level, maybe only 20, 30, 40% of what's in there will resonate and be useful to some. But with many, we're looking at sort of 70, 80% of the way to answering the questions that they have to ask. And it helps them guide in a bespoke way to their needs. So it's not prescriptive. It is very much your interpretation of how it can be delivered for your specific circumstances. Similarly, if we have a facility management organization, there may be a requirement to source a facilities management service. Similarly, when we're looking at this, it can be something that is internal, although quite often when you are sourcing, you are looking at external requirements. And 41012 offers that guidance on strategic sourcing and development of the agreements. Similarly, there's some guidance on who may be interested in these standards, whether it's procurement professionals, contract managers, facility managements, or the FMOs that we were talking about before. This is a published standard, so there is 41012 available right now, but we're talking about it because currently we are undertaking the 5-year review as 41001 was. And again, this is being led by the UK. We have a UK representative leading the international review of 41012. As you can see, I've shared some of the sort of bullet points of what's being looked at the moment. And it is, setting that sourcing strategy, starting, it's in the title, with a strategic approach. What is the right strategy for our organization? How are we going to apply that? And then what does that actually mean in terms of boots on the ground? So strategy, tactics, and operations. It does help guide what sort of roles and responsibilities may need to be fulfilled throughout the sourcing process. And again, whether that is at that strategic level, tactical level, or operational level. It also goes into details of how you develop agreements. This is a standard very close to my heart. It is something very much that comes from my day job, procurement of FM contracts. And we as consultants often get involved when maybe the FM procurement has not been, the FM delivery perhaps has not been as successful as perhaps a client was looking for. And therefore, they're looking to get this done in a more structured way. What's often happens is the procurement can happen in a very structured way. It can follow very defined processes, particularly in the public realm. However, when it's then handed over, similar to having evangelized soft landings in the construction industry for the last few years, sometimes that is done with a sort of big bang process rather than trying to smooth that transition period and make sure that the change between that procurement phase and setting up the understandings, there is an agreement between the sourced provider and the client. How are we actually going to be running this going forwards? So this is something else that is offered as guidance. The last standard that I'm going to share with you is 41016, and this is very much the future now. A technical report, which is what the TR stands for, on the overview of available technologies has been published. Was it last month? Very recently. Might have even been this month, but very recently, technical report has come out. And it is an overview of the available technologies within facility management. There is a lot of very sort of sci-fi level, futuristic sounding tech available now. And this technical report goes some way to having a look at how they can be integrated. It touches, skirts around the benefits of investing now and accumulating later, benefiting later. It helps understand the systems, the equipment, the various different buzzwords that people are hearing: AI, AR, VR. What do all these things mean? How can they be used within facilities management? This is again undergoing a process of evolution along with the technology as well. A technical report has been published, but we're now looking to see what the next steps might be. So again, looking if people would be interested in steering and guiding the future. What do you think would be beneficial? Again, comments in the chat in the questions section. We have got a mature industry. There was one of those shocking statistics that's re-emerged, published by, I wonder if it came out in Facilitate, the article there. 40% of our industry is retiring in the next 8 years. Certainly I know Facilitate was looking at that a decade and a bit ago. We've got an older, a more mature workforce. So trying to integrate some of these technologies into people who have a number of decades behind them, looking at having done things one way, trying to change and upskill and reintegrate is a challenge. How do we bring fresh people in? Well, looking at these technologies, this is exactly what people are looking for. If we can't offer this adoption of technology, then there's going to be limited appeal to the younger generation. So in this case, some of the people who may be interested in this, again, existing facility managers, new people being educated, and the educators themselves, building owner and operators, engineers themselves, procurement teams. This has a wide-ranging appeal. I have mentioned a few times getting involved. There are several different ways that you can do that. I have got up on there 3 different options for you. You can get involved directly from this sort of standoff point of view. You can have a look at registering on that standards development website. It's a free thing to register. Just put your name and email address. I seem to remember I did it a while ago. You can look for standards. I mean, some of the things that I've mentioned, when you can be alerted to them. You can set up searches and notifications. You can make suggestions on some of the public. I don't think that's me. Andrew, if you want to take that down. You can make some guidance on some of the public. Okay, we'll leave it up there for now. On some of the published draft standards, the options are written up there, so you can make editorial, i.e. You've said there is many as opposed to there are many, that sort of grammatical suggestion. You can make technical. No, windows are all opaque. Well, no, some of them you can see straight through. So if you believe there is some technical information that is presented inaccurately, then you can make that sort of comment. Or you can make general suggestions, things that don't fit into either of those boxes. What I'm sharing here is the, I get there, there we go, I'm back. The landing page here, this is where you would go in. You can also register your ideas. So any suggestions for topics that you feel are not currently or sufficiently covered by existing standards, those are things that you can suggest in this area, and they will filter their way through to appropriate groups. I've also put my contact details in there, so if anyone would like to connect through LinkedIn, more than welcome to do so. And also happy to have chats offline. Oh, I can close that, that's good. The last thing I'm going to leave you with is the standards related, is an idea of some of the British standards that we are currently working on, and therefore potentially looking for support with. So the first one is talking about what I just mentioned before, you know, that bridging that gap between construction and operations, with only a few exceptions, exhibitions being one that jumps straight to mind. Most construction, or nearly all construction, is dwarfed both in terms of cost and time by the operational phase, and yet a construction project quite often has that big bang finish I was alluding to before, where there is a sudden practical completion, everyone's off site. Soft landing is something that is pretty well established within the market, but we're looking at offering some guidance to facilities managers, operational advisors, transition managers on how they can bridge that performance gap and smooth the transition period. That is a proposal that's just gone into BSI. If you have connected to me on LinkedIn, then if that gets approved, we will certainly be shouting about it that way. Similarly, something that is a step or so behind that, something that we are looking at within the group at the moment to put a proposal together. We have a straw man at the moment, is specialist service providers. Be that, you know, your lifts or your catering equipment or your high-level cleaners. What is the industry best practice around that sort of sourcing? Again, covering both sides, in-house, external, etc. And the last one on the list, workplace. This one has been approved, and I believe the first meeting is happening this week. This is such a rapidly evolving landscape at the moment that we feel support may well be welcomed in terms of a standard around workplace, how to manage it, what to look for. Last things I'm going to leave you with around the people who put this together. Again, that's myself. A couple of groups. You can see there's a lot of work going on there. As I mentioned before, made up of industry bodies, individual experts, government institutions, clients themselves, FM organizations or suppliers. We are looking to always augment our numbers. So if anyone is interested, please do let us know. So to close us out, I've had a look at and shared with you what there is out there. We've been looking at who should be using this, and finally we finished off with why you should be using it. To close, if there's a gap that you think you should be filling, as they say, that ancient Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, second best time is now. You can seize that opportunity to move things forward. and get involved, pick up standards. Stan started by saying that some people don't believe in standards. I'm hoping that those that are still here are not those. So thank you very much, everybody. I will now hand back to Anna to see if we've got any questions to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Stan, as well. So we do have around about 10 minutes for questions. So Stan, if you could put your camera on as well, we'll make a start. Thank you. So the first one that's come in is around what are the main differences between ISO 41001 and ISO 9001, which is obviously the quality management system standard?
I think I actually touched on this on one of my slides towards the end. The difference is that 9001 is a quality management standard that, as I said, it's checking to see that you do what you say you do. Now, that could be anything. That could be administration, manufacturing, whatever it might be. So the quality management standard is simply saying that your processes and procedures are up to date, and what people actually do who are meant to be following those processes and procedures are doing it in the way that it says they should be doing it. For all the benefits that I also showed in terms of a management system standard, where you bring in continuity of performance, you bring in the learning of the processes and refining of them to make things operate more efficiently and effectively. The difference with 41001 is that it goes beyond that. It goes into the facilities management scope of activities. So in 41001, to comply with that standard, you need to have looked and understand and challenged the context of the organization. You need to be able to demonstrate leadership in delivery of facilities management services, whether that's an in-house team or an outsourced organization. So it's not just about doing what you say you do, it's about doing it in the context of delivering value in an FM, from an FM perspective, so you are meeting the needs of the demand organization. So I would argue if you have 41001, you don't need 9001 because you've gone beyond that, and it's totally relevant to FM and how you deliver FM within the demand organization.
Thank you, Stan. So we've got one which perhaps both Stan and Nick you might be able to respond to, which is how has the take up and full adoption of ISO 41001 performed against the TC or working group's expectations over the last 5 years?
A very good question. I'll pick up first, Nick. Nobody knows is the honest answer to that, because ISO don't know. And the reason they don't know is because when ISO creates a standard, those standards are delivered to the marketplace via lots of different organizations. If I take BSI as an example, if you want to buy that standard, you can go to BSI and they will sell that standard to you. But if you have an organization that has a corporate account with BSI, BSI or ISO doesn't know how many people are actually using that standard because it's not controlled in that way. What we do know about the ISO 41001 is we get anecdotal information, and generally speaking, what we've found is in the more mature FM marketplaces, the uptake has been fairly low, and I would put the UK in that category. If you go to the emerging markets where FM is not so mature and established, there's a lot of take up on 41001 because I go back to always saying they don't want to reinvent the wheel. They want to benefit from all the work that has already been done by those maturer markets in creating these standards, and that gives them a head start. So abroad, answering this from a UK perspective, those international markets and countries, there's a much greater proportional uptake on 41001 than there is in some of the Western marketplaces.
Yeah, I'd second that, Stan. We've both heard some wonderful stories about governments, defense departments taking this up. We've heard stories about this being taken up by educators, all sorts of different industries outside of the UK. But you're absolutely right. I mentioned that my day job is around procurement of FM. When we are asking for examples, proofs of these sorts of standardized qualifications, certifications, associations, certainly if I'm drafting it, I will change it now to, instead of being a request for 9001, it's do you have 41001 or 9001. But it is the traditional 9001 that is picked up more and more. But I don't know if that's for us to address, because it's something, like I say, I'm trying to change in the small area that I can influence. But we're also doing things like this, educating people. We had a sort of 50-50 response about, oh, didn't really know it was around in that poll earlier. I think that's something that we can pick up on, telling people that it exists and doing what you've done, sharing with people why it's superior to 9001 if you are an FM provider. So we'll keep doing this. Ask that question again in a few years' time.
Thanks, Nick. And I think we've only got time for one more question, which is how can the standard manage the wide variety of different facilities management services that are required for various different facilities?
I can jump in on
There's
that.
an easy
Answer on that, Stan, but very, very briefly, I addressed that in what I was discussing. These are not prescriptive. They give you ideas, insights into some of the best practice that is available, put together by literally international experts, and you find what resonates with you. I don't know if you wanted to add to that, Stan.
Yeah, the answer is it's a management standard. So it's about how you manage the scope and the variety of the scope and the technical requirements that are involved. So it's about how you manage what the demand organisation wants and needs from you as an FM organisation. So it doesn't matter if the scope is 2, 3, 4 activities, the technical activities, or if it's 24 technical activities, how you manage it and how you approach the procurement, the measurement of performance, etc., is what the management system standard is all about.
Thanks, Stan. Thanks, Nick. I'm afraid that is all that we have time for today. As I mentioned at the start, you will receive a link to the webinar recording when it is available. If you would like to learn more about the standards being developed, you can visit the pages that are on the slide at the moment, and we've provided those in QR code format and also as links in the handout information. And as Nick mentioned, you can actually follow standards if you go to the FMW1 page, so you will receive notifications of when key points in that standards development come up. So do please follow any that you are interested in. Before we do go, I'd just like to draw your attention to 2 BSI webinars that are coming up in the next couple of months. The first is around the Evolving Fire Risk Assessment, and that's a joint webinar with the IFE, and that starts at 1:30 today. In July, we have another webinar with the IFE around lithium-ion battery safety, risks, challenges, and public awareness. So please do visit the link if you would like to sign up to that one. And then in September, we have 2 webinars as part of Net Zero Week on climate resilience of UK assets and environment law and biodiversity net gain. So again, please do sign up for those at the links on the slide. So it just remains for me to say thank you again to Stan and Nick for presenting today, and to everybody for attending. We do hope to see you at a future event soon. Thank you.